computer, you have to hit okay. Anyway.
That's it. Just turn me on, turn me up, and turn me loose.
And we're live.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, everyone.
Oh, man.
Man, a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, we got some of the tribe down there at Talladega National Forest camping out. Going to be there for a week. We got folks in the hospital. Need to talk about. Got all kind of stuff happening.
We do. What was up with Squirrel? The pig chased the dog, or the dog chased the pig and tore the damn door open on the deep freeze or something like that, and she's cleaning up a mess.
Yeah, she sent a picture a minute ago. She's fleshing out a deer hide. She's covered up in deer stuff where she's fleshing the hide. She had what all was it? She had like coon hides and deer hides and bear hides and had a bunch of food in that freezer. And
the picture that she sent, though, where she said that she didn't say anything. She just sent a picture after she talks about the pig is tearing up everything. And the next thing you see is a picture of the pig laying on the ground, and she's holding one of its legs up, and it looks like she's getting ready to gut the pig. And
yeah,
I was like, all right, she actually went through with it. But no, turns out the pig's leg was hurt, so she was trying to take care of it.
She was doctoring the pig.
Yeah, she was witch doctoring on the pig instead of skinning it. But yeah,
she'd have been better off driving over it with her husband's Jeep, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
You don't want to hit a pig with a car, that's for sure.
No. What was it? One of her neighbor's dogs, bulldog, had got in the pen with her pig, chasing the pig. The pig busted out. Then they got in the barn, and undoubtedly was ring around the rosy going around the upright freezer, and somehow knocked the door open, and they didn't know it, so everything in there thawed out. Yeah, she's had a mess.
Yeah. I want to go back and talk about what we were talking about backstage.
we can't. We get kicked off the air. I mean,
Hey, most of everybody in chat was there. Sharon was there. Ken was there.
If y'all saw the now deleted video of Roger and the Roger's live with Peyton and the truck and what happened, him describing it in person is funny as hell.
Man, look, they had me over the phone on speakerphone coming out, and it was like I was riding with them because I'm watching. Peyton's holding the camera and I'm talking, so everybody, it's like I'm with them. Y'all, look, I couldn't hardly breathe. I was laughing so bad.
That's horrible.
Catherine missed it and asked me, she said, "Did you delete the live?" Like, I had to. I was cussing too much, and there was bones and stuff breaking. It was horrible. I couldn't leave it up.
Well, before I get going here, thank you everyone that's in chat. Thank you all the moderators. Y'all please give me a hand. Everybody keeping up with chat because Squirrel ain't here today. So I hope Squirrel gets the stuff done that she needs to. She didn't go to bed until about a little after. No, she still hadn't been to bed.
Yeah, she's still up.
She's been up all night. Ray Daw is in the hospital, y'all. She's in the what do they call it? IC intensive
Yeah,
care.
ICU.
So if y'all are friends with Ray, make sure you reach out and send her a message or something, thoughts and prayers on that one. And anybody else that needs it, but I don't know of anybody right now.
While I'm thinking about it, everybody knows my buddy Alan that's, in Chad, he's under George White. Al was at work Thursday, got super sick, and they had to rush him to the hospital. His gallbladder almost exploded. It was like right on the brink of busting, and they had to do emergency surgery on him. And he's still in the hospital in Birmingham. So hopefully he'll get to come home today, maybe tomorrow. And so yeah, y'all keep him in your thoughts and prayers, definitely.
Okay, so hey, Earl, since you're backstage and you can still hear me, your camera's on, just so you know. That's up to you though. Anyway, so the title of the show, which is odd, a tale of crows and boogers. Well, that's because you got to hear the man talk about stuff himself. And this goes, I'll bring him on in 1 second, but here's another guy that has been around a lot of stuff and had a bunch of experience. He's been around a bunch of other people that have had a lot of experiences, and wait till he tells you about like his dad and his grandpa and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, so this is Two Crows and Boogers. We're going to call him Earl for the show. But anyway, what's up, brother?
What's happening? How you fellas doing? I was sitting here giggling about Backstage. So
Y'all shut up.
Oh, you don't want to talk about it now because Heather's in the car.
Oh, I know. And I forgot to tell her that Greg was on the speakerphone over the speakers, and like the audience could hear Greg, and we were all just talking. And then when all crap broke loose, it was all.
See, distracted driving leads to problems.
Always does.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather.
Hey.
The thing about it, the only way Roger could have been driving any slower is if he'd been in reverse.
How does that happen? How do you run over something and you're not moving?
Well, you had video proof of it. You deleted
I
it.
know. No, and I told Spencer didn't know the story. I was like, for y'all that saw it, we saw the deer, and I slowed down. I came to almost a complete stop, and this deer, the road was wet because it had been raining, and this deer slipped and fell and tripped and fell under my right tire. He was trying to get away. He had a suicide. I don't know what it was.
Under your right tire?
Yeah, that's what sorry,
y'all.
I thought he had done run over this dude, so.
Oh my God! Shut up.
My left front tire. Sorry, guys. And then it just got worse from there.
Oh.
It's like I don't know. I mean, the people that were there thought it was funny, and I think I'm the only one that felt bad about it. Everybody else was laughing, and I was trying not to, but
I felt bad.
Peyton didn't help.
I felt bad.
Peyton didn't help.
No. I mean, like when you run over something like that, and people on the live can hear bones crunching, and then he comes out with that probably was a homeless dude. You have to back up and show everybody that it wasn't a homeless dude.
You can't tell this story.
I'm sorry.
It's too late.
There's probably dents in the mufflers and everything else. I don't know. Sorry, I'll shut up.
I mean, there was nothing funny about the deer going under the truck. The funny part was Roger's reaction and the way it happened because it was like how did you just do that?
How did that just happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the kicker, after I got through like murdering this deer, I back up and it's gone. We can't find it. And I mean, immediately can't find it. I don't know if it got up and ran off. Yeah, look, there's one right there. There's looked like my big mama looking for the little one.
I mean, really, in all fairness, Roger backed up. He backed up way past where it happened, and he eased back up. I mean, there wasn't even a greasy spot or anything in the road.
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I could understand if I was doing 15 miles an hour, but I had my foot on the brake and I was just, if I was doing 2 miles an hour, that I don't even see how that was possible, but um, it slipped. It slipped and went right under the tire. But anyway,
I
y'all, I'm
mean,
sorry. I'm holding
right?
back some because if I get to telling too much, it could be pretty rough. But I told Heather we were driving down the road yesterday, and Catherine, a bunch of people, asked me like, "Did you delete that? Did you delete it?" I'm like, "Yeah," because what all happened? We're driving down the road, and I was like, "Heather, I got to tell you something happened last night on live, and what I'm about to tell you and what you're going to hear is two different things." I did not hit a deer with your truck. I ran over it, and we were like not moving, and I don't know how to explain that, but everything was cool.
Yeah.
But all
Okay,
right,
now that we got that out of the way.
yeah, let's talk to the guest. I'm sorry, y'all.
Anyway,
Don't get started.
Earl, you got to start talking, or we'll keep talking about the damn deer.
All right. Basically, like everybody else, first thing I ever saw was a Patterson Gimlin film. So that's kind of my introduction to it. And never really thought anything about it. Was always kind of interested in it. And then back in early 80s, my dad used to be a big-time fisherman. I mean, fish tournaments, it didn't matter. He used to drive me nuts when I was a kid because if he stopped and someone brought up fishing, we were not leaving for 2 hours. Bless his heart. He's gone now. He's been gone 14 years. But him and my cousin Joe, which was more like an uncle because he was only like a year or two younger than my dad, put in Leesburg, Georgia on the Flint River and was going to float down to Albany, Georgia and get out. That's where Joe lived, was in Albany. And they were going to camp out overnight on the banks and fish all night, you know what I'm saying? So it was about 7 o'clock that Sunday morning, and they were on the west side of the river. And you got to understand, when this first happened, my dad did not want to talk about it because everybody made fun of him. I finally pulled it out of my dad about 3 months before he passed away. He told me, he said, "I'll tell you, and then don't ask me no more." So that's how I got the story. My dad was up front running the trolling motor, and they were fishing along the bank, and the river made a left-hand turn, and there's usually on the Flint, when it bends like that, there's usually like a little pond or like a little, I don't know what you would call it. So it's like a little overspill back up in the corner, and usually bass would go up in there, and my dad was fishing, top water fishing. So he was going to ease over to the left-hand side, and he looked that way, and on the bank, he saw what he first thought was a black bear drinking water. And he was like, "Cool, I've never seen one in the wild." So he's looking at it, and he tells my cousin, he said, "Hey, Jeff, take a look." Well, whatever it was hurt him, and that's when he saw it move, and that's when my dad noticed the thing was cupping water, bringing it up to its face to drink. And he was like, "Bears don't do that." And he said when he called for Joe again, it looked straight up at him, stood up, gave a huff, turned around, grabbed a little tree, and walked back up the hill in the woods. Joe only saw the ass end of it and said it was a bear. My dad said bears don't walk on 2 feet and bears don't cup water to drink.
That is true.
And when I asked him, I said, "What did it look like?" And Godzilla happened to be on. He goes, "Do you see that?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "It looked like that, just not that big." And it was black, solid black.
Did he describe the face at all?
He just kept saying gorilla, said it looked like a gorilla to him. That's all I could get out of him. But he said it was big, and it was black hair, and it walked on 2 legs, and it had hands. and that was on the Flint River. I think it was about 1983.
He kept on fishing after that, still doing the same thing.
Nope. After that, my dad did not camp out anymore. He used to go to these fishing tournaments. They would last all night. You'd start about 3 in the afternoon and go till the next morning. He didn't do that anymore. When the sun went down, if he was on the river, lake, pond, it's time to go to the bank, get in the truck, go home. That put an end to it. He did not do any overnight fishing ever again.
Y'all, something he said earlier, the more we interview people and we have things happen to us, he said something that it looked at him and huffed, and we're starting to hear that, like when they're surprised or when they're frustrated, like, oh man, somebody saw me. That's starting to be a repeated thing in situations. So that's I like hearing stuff like that.
Well, he said it looked kind of annoyed, and when it stood up, and Joe wouldn't look over there, and my dad, he said, I'm sitting there in amazement. He said, I'm surprised I didn't fall out of the boat, and he went, whoof, and turned around, grabbed a little tree, and stepped back up the hill into the woods, and was gone.
I mean, what can you say? That sounds just like the real deal. I mean, the right thing. What time?
Well, my dad was never into any of this stuff. My dad didn't hunt. My dad was a fisherman. You know, he thought it was all BS until that day on the river. And he didn't really look into it after that. He just wouldn't talk about it, didn't want to talk about it. He was done with it.
If you go your whole life thinking that these things don't exist, and then all of a sudden it's different for people. Everybody in chat, everybody that'll see this video, if you've watched more than a couple of our shows, you should fairly well know that, like, what we're talking about is based off our own experiences and everything. If you saw one and you already believed in the existence of them or the possibility, it might not be as traumatizing. But if you're out there and you don't believe in any of this and you see something that makes you question everything that you were taught as a kid and what you believed, that'd be like having a UFO land in your front yard and an alien come out and want to talk to you. I mean, it just change it.
And think about this, Spencer, for somebody that grew up hearing about these things, and maybe that's one of their boogeymans that scares them, that they don't tell anybody about, right? But it doesn't exist, but it's still scary to them. But all of a sudden, now there it is, and it's real. And all these fears that you've had your whole life, now what do you do with that? How do you handle that?
Well, all I can say is the details of the story sound accurate to my uneducated mind. Hey, Bobby. Anyway, carry on, Earl. So aside from your dad,
I had an uncle. Now my uncle, I'm gonna call him Uncle R because he still has kids alive, and I haven't spoken with him, so I don't want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was him and his brother run a logging company. Now his brother was bigger than he was, but Uncle R was about 6'3", 300 pounds, solid muscle man. And I ain't talking about lifting weights, solid muscle. I'm talking about out in the woods, cutting trees, tossing logs, doing whatever. He told me, and the way it got brought up is I was at my cousin's house, and he had taken us out to their little cabin on the creek. And I was like, it's kind of spooky out here. And he, there ain't no boogers out here. And I was like, boogers? He's 6 feet. And I was like, huh? I was in 7th grade. He said, they ain't going to mess with you. And I said, you believe in that? Because, And he said, son, I don't believe it. I know they're real. And he said, I'll tell you the story, and I don't give a damn whether you believe me or not. I said, well, go ahead. Well, this took place up in Stewart County, Georgia. Stewart County's up near, y'all call it Lake Eufaula, and then on Georgia side, it's called Lake George. Yeah. Well, we were on the Lake George side. He was on the Lake George side in Stewart County. And I don't know how it is on the Alabama side over there, but on the Stewart County side, it's very hilly. There's a lot of bottoms. It's almost like mini mountains.
Yeah.
I guess they call it part of the Chattahoochee Bluffs. But they were cleared a plot of land, and it was his turn to get out to the site early that morning because his brother had been doing it, and it was his turn. So he goes out there early before daylight, and he's making sure the load of logs they have is strapped down good, so when the driver gets there, he can take off. You know, they're trying to get as many loads out as possible. And he said, I checked straps on one side, and he said, I was walking around the back of it to check the straps on the other side, and he said, when I walked around, he said, my light hit it, and I looked at it, and I said, what'd you see? He said, it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. He said it was about 7 feet tall, made me look like a baby, and was a blondish brown color. And I said, what did you do? He said, I shit myself. And I was like, I bet you did. He said, no, seriously, that's what happened. I did that. And I was like, really? He goes, son, you wasn't there. You didn't see it. He said, there was nothing but about 6 feet between me and this thing, and it wanted me, and there was nothing I could do because he was out in the middle of the woods. And I said, what happened? He said, it kind of huffed at me, turned around, and walked back off into the woods. There's that huffing thing again. I said, well, what happened after that? He said, well, I called my brother, told him. He said, I left, and I went up to the little local convenience store, and I went to the bathroom, and I cleaned myself up as best I could. I called my brother, because this is before cell phones. This is like 80, 81, when this took place. And he said, I told my brother, bring me some clothes from the hotel. You know, he said, I'd had that accident. And when his brother got there, his brother was messing with him about doing it, and he told his brother, and his brother said, oh, you seen it? And he said, I immediately stopped it. And he goes, what the you mean I seen it? He goes, oh, you finally seen it? He goes, no, what the are you talking about? Because his brother didn't tell him. His brother's done seen it a couple of times. He said, the tracks are all over the landing area. He said, you haven't paid attention? He said, hell no. He said, why didn't you tell me this thing was there? He said, because you probably wouldn't have got up and went out there before dark and done what you were supposed to.
Damn.
So he told me, he said, and this is a God-fearing man, he said, I cussed my brother up one side and down the other with language that would make Popeye the Sailor Man blush. He said, I just let him have it. He said, but I started noticing after that while they were working there, every morning you would see the tracks. He said some were 15, some were close to 18 tracks walking around in what they call the little landing area where they pile up the logs and then put them on the trailers. You'd see the tracks all through there. I guess they were just coming to check them out, what they were doing. I don't know. He said he never saw it again after that, but he said he was real careful to make sure everything was strapped down good before they left that night, so he didn't have to go messing around that truck anymore. So,
thank you, Blake. Oh, I bet.
But
I'm gonna go out and come back in, y'all.
Okay.
All right. Sorry.
He would tell you. I mean, he had no problem telling you. He didn't care. He did not care. He told. I remember one time. It was at church. I'd stayed over at my cousin's, and somebody had kind of jokingly asked him about it, and he turned and looked at him. He said, I don't give a damn whether you believe me or not, or whether you called me crazy. Me and God know what I saw. And he goes, just because you don't believe they're real, doesn't mean they're not walking around out in them woods out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the type of man he was. You know, we talking about a dude, big old arms. He was no small man. And then that's about it with my family. I don't really have anything else with them. But that kind of got me curious. And I never really paid attention. I'll listen to the podcast and stuff. I used to listen to Carrie some and all when I was offshore. I'd listen to all kind of different stuff, but it was always interesting listening to them. And then my brother and I had a chance to get a lease. And I told you, little towns. It's a little southeast Georgia, kind of middle of Georgia. north from where I am right now. And our hunting lease, there's a ridge line that runs us through it. And it runs from north of Albany all the way down into Chattahoochee and that whole area. And he showed me the lease land. And unfortunately, at that time, I had got a hernia, and I was scheduled for hernia surgery. So this is kind of funny. So I come back, I get the hernia surgery. I do my couple of weeks off. I go back to work, and I come back, and it's time to go deer hunting. But I'm still not healed enough where I could climb up in a tree stand. And I ordered a blind, but the blind didn't come in. And this is on private land, so I had an old ghillie blanket and a ghillie suit. And I said, well, I'm going to back the truck down kind of this way on the hill, and I'm going to throw the ghillie blanket on the back, and I got me a little chair sitting in the back of the truck. And I put on the little thing, and if you're looking at the chair from out the front of the truck back up the hill, you would blend in with the trees behind you. So I said, I'm going to shoot a deer. Do it this way. And I ended up eventually killing one, a little doe. But I couldn't move. I still had the little brace thing on you have to wear. And I'm sitting there one morning, and this is when I first started wondering what's out there on that land. And I'm sitting there one morning, and it's probably about 4:30, because I like to get there before daylight and set and watch the world wake up. And I hear this god-awful howl, roar. I'm not really sure what you would. The closest thing I found that sounds like it, if you took the original American Werewolf in London howl and you kind of lengthened it out a little bit and made it a little higher pitch, that's what it kind of sounded like. And when it first did it, I jerked, and I was like, I got cold chills down my spine. I was like, what the hell was that? And then it did it again. And I'm like, that sounds like a hound, but that'd have to be the biggest damn hound dog I've ever heard in my life. And it kept going. It done it a couple more times. And then the coyotes started up. And when the coyotes started up, its tone changed to more of a roar type. And the coyotes completely shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And this was not out in front of me. This was north of me, behind me, because I was facing south, and this was behind me was north. I crossed the dirt road and back in the trees, back in International Papers, Planet Pines, or Coastal, excuse me, it's Coastal, I think owns that. And I literally, I had a 9mm in my truck, and I had a 7 mag with me, but my big ass, still sore, rolled over the bed of that truck, landed on the ground, got to that door, pulled that 9 out, and somehow got back in the back of that truck, scared out of my mind. I had never heard anything like it. And I told my brother about it. He said, well, somebody, that was an old hound. I said, I've been hunting out here 3 weeks. I've never heard a hound dog. Not once. And there's still no hounds out there to this day, and it's been 4 years later, and there's still no hounds out there. I've never heard that again, but I have no idea what it was, but it immediately made my hair is standing up on my arm just talking about it right now. It scared the out of me.
How close, if you were guessing, how close do you think it may have been to you?
150 yards.
That's close
you could feel the vibration of it. You know,
I've tried to tell people before, when you hear one in real life, it's not the same. You can listen to audio clips of this stuff all day long. Hearing one in real life is completely different. And when you hear it naturally, most anybody knows that that's not a normal animal that you're used to being around. You can tell the difference between, well, I don't know about Dogman, but as far as boogers go, you can distinctly tell the difference between a coyote and a booger when you hear it in real life. And something else that you said, which is very often the case. A booger call will very often trigger the coyotes, or you'll hear the coyotes start going, and then you'll hear the booger scream, and the coyotes will shut up.
Well, the coyote started after he or she had roared, howled 3 times, and then when the coyote started up, it changed to more of a roar, and that's when they shut up. They went silent. Everything went silent. Crickets, everything went silent. There was no noise. That was the first time I started questioning what the hell was out there, because this place is way out in the country. There's no light pollution. You know, when it's dark out there, it's dark. You can see the stars, Milky Way, all clear. Well, that season was cut short. Oh, let me take that back. I moved to another part of the property when I got better, and I had scouted a place where I wanted to hunt, and I still couldn't climb, but I had my ground blind in, so I had set it up down in this bottom. And this same bottom, I've had more stuff happen. Well, I'd set up a camera, and it was time for me to go back out, but have you seen those, and Greg, you're probably familiar. Y'all all might be familiar. Have you seen the buckets that's like grape flavored or apple flavored, and they got like nuts and stuff, and you hang it on a tree, hang it up? Well, I hung one of those probably about 6, 7 feet up in a pine, and I had the camera on it. And, you know, I wanted to see what was coming down there. I found tracks, but, you know, it could be does, could be, you know, yearlings. I wanted to see if there was any bucks coming in down there. Well, I go do my 2 weeks, and I come back and I asked my brother, I said, have you been down there? And he said, no, I haven't been down there. He said, I'm not walking all the way down that hill into that bottom, because it's like 300 yards down, 300 yards up. And he's older than I am. He said, I'm not walking all the way down there. That's you. You can have that. I said, all right. So I go down there, check my camera, and I have pictures of the bucket hanging from the tree, you know, and then you can see a little deer, you can see a doe come in, and then all the pictures are corrupt after that. Well, the bucket, the whole thing is gone. Now, this bucket had a rope, and that rope had like a little clip. You know, you have to push in and hook, and you tie the rope to the hook thing around the tree, and then you clip the bucket on. Well, the rope's still hanging there. The whole bucket and everything's gone, completely gone. But the clip is in there just fine. It hasn't been bent, nothing, but the whole bucket is gone. I thought that was kind of weird.
That is.
So, you know, that was a strange thing. But nothing else really weird happened the rest of that year.
Hold on. Whenever you say the rest of the pictures were corrupted.
Yeah, you couldn't see them. I had 3 pictures of that bucket being there, and then everything else after that was corrupted. I even tried changing cards, putting the card in a different camera to see if it would work. It's all corrupted. I had to throw the card away and get a new card.
Okay. And now, the batteries in the game.
Batteries, brand new. It was a brand new game camera.
Okay.
So I don't know. That could have been something. Maybe not. I found it weird that the line with the little clasp that you push in and you hook the rope through, that's still hanging on the tree, and it's not bent, not pulled, like something grabbed a hold of it and pulled it down. It's like someone unclipped it and took off with it.
All I'm saying is, number one, we've all had experiences with the whole battery issues and electronics going haywire or just dying, even with fresh batteries. And I'm sure a lot of us have had experience with the game cameras having I did the same thing whenever I was defrosting a freezer, hanging turkeys out on the back of my property. You would see it frame after frame after frame. And then the rest of them, it's taking pictures. You can see it, but the picture won't open. And it's just all messed up. But
oh yeah.
It would be one thing if the bucket was still there and you just didn't have any pictures afterwards. It's different whenever you say like somebody had to push in the clasp of like a little mini carabiner and take the bucket, and the card is still on the camera, because if you're a person and you see the camera, what are you going to do? You can walk over and take the camera, or at least take the card with you out of the camera if you're going to steal that bait. So yeah, two out of three. That's odd.
Well, you got to understand, my mind is not on boogers at this time. I'm deer hunting, and when I go deer hunting, I'm zoned in. That's where I'm at. My wife says it drives her nuts. She knows for about 3-4 months out of the year, that's where I'm at. You know, she's like, I can't teach you to do anything. All you worry about is deer. I said, this is my time. You got me the rest of the year. This is my time. So, but anyway, that happened. And like I said, I was not thinking that. Had not crossed my mind. Let's go to the next season. And we had got more land added to the lease. And we had land across the north side. Remember where I told you I heard they roar, howls? So I'm over there, and there's a little cut that runs down, and there's some planted pines. It's like a little thicket of planted pines and scrub oaks, and then there's some big wide open oaks. Well, I went back there looking, and I was like, deer come through here, so I'm going to put up a camera, see what's coming through. And I poured out some corn. This was before season started. And I was getting pictures of hogs and some deer coming through, and had a big black boar hog on there. You could see his cutters. I wanted him. So I set up like a little blind, and had figured out they would come through at 7 at night, and then they would ease back through at 7 in the morning through the same area. So my plan was to go pull my four-wheeler in early and kind of back up in the bushes and just lay across it and wait on the hogs to come out. Probably a poor plan on hog hunting. Never did see the hogs. So I pulled my camera down and went to looking at pictures. Well, you would have pictures of the hogs there, and then the next picture, all you see is the ass end of the hog going into the bushes. And you would have pictures of flashing, and there's nothing there. And I'm like, I wonder what's spooking them hogs, because that big boar hog ain't going to be much to make him afraid. I can just go ahead and tell you. He was big. So I kept seeing that, and I was like, well, I wonder if it's a panther, if it's coyotes, you know. So I go down there, and I'm going to go check out the area, because the hogs would come from the bottom up. And whatever was spooking them forced them to go into the thicket to the left. And now on the right is oak bottom. You know, it's a lot of oak trees, a lot of acorns. So whatever's spooking them is making them go to the left into the thicket. So I'm figuring, well, maybe there's some tracks over here. So I ease back there, and I'm walking around looking, and there's some water runoff. Now you got to remember, this is probably 60 yards from a dirt road, and right across the road from this oak bottom is a guy. He's an old shotgun house he has out there, and he doesn't live out there, but he has it in his yard still there. He keeps the yard cut, but the deer come through his yard and come across the dirt road and come that way, come down that trail. And I'm walking and looking, and I walk up to this little wet area, and I turn and look, and it's a track. But it's a track like I've never seen before. And I shake my head. Nah. I walk off, and I'm looking at deer tracks, hog tracks, still not seeing what would be running the hogs off. Go back to that track again. This time I squat down, and I'm looking at it. And I move a couple of pieces of pine straw. And I said, that can't be what I think that is. There's no way in God's green earth, that is what I cannot be. Cannot be. Get up, walk off again. Turn around, go back to the track. This is the third time. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, your eyes are seeing what you're seeing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I look in the little sandy area above it, and there's the opposite footprint in the sand above the muddy area. And it's kind of hard packed sand, but you can still see the depth of it. And I'm looking at it, and I look at this one, and I look at that one, and it's two opposite feet. I was like, that can't be what I think it is. It can't be what I think it is. Can't be what I think it is. Can't be what I think it is. There's no way in hell I just walked up and found this out in these woods. So they were there. Bare footprints. Both of them were about 13 inches long. They were longer than my size 10.5 Rocky boot, which I measured it when I got home, and it measures a foot. So they were about 13 inches. I took pictures. They're not great pictures. Of course, a camera cannot convey what you're looking at. No, I did not put down a lighter, a dollar bill. None of that was in my head. Once again, I was not out there looking for that stuff, but it was looking for me evidently because I found it. And I kind of freaked out a little bit, and I started getting the heebie-jeebies, you know, because that's a little freaky. You're in the woods, and you found it. Now you're wondering, where the hell are they? Are they still here? Are they gone? What's going on? So as I see those, I call a buddy of mine. I'm trying to get somebody to come out there to see this to make sure I'm not crazy. And everybody's at work, you know, because I work that weird 2 and 2 schedule. So everybody's at work. So I was like, well, hell. All right. So I turn around and walk back, see if I can find any other tracks going the opposite direction. What I did find amazing is about where I found these 2 tracks. There was a tree stump there that had some bushes growing up in it. And if you looked up while I was squatted down, I looked up over and through those bushes, you could see where the deer would come across through his yard and come across the road down that trail. And I was like, and that was my hunter's mind, thinking, I wonder if whoever this is what they were doing. Because you could see the direct line to where the deer come through the yard. But as I turn around, I'm walking around, I come up, I find 2 sticks that are stuck. Now that could have been accident. I don't know, but both of them are caught and stuck in between a vine and the tree, and they're an X. And I sent you that picture. You could see the rest where the part of it that fell off the thing. It used to be bigger. And, you know, like I said, that could have been a weather or just an accident that both of them fell and done that. I find it weird, but, you know, especially after seeing the track, I was a little freaked out. And then I found a bow where the oak tree was tied into another tree. It wasn't weighted down. It was almost like it was kind of knotted in.
Yeah.
And I really got freaked out. And I went back to the tracks and I took the pictures and I got the hell out of there. Because I was a little freaked out after that. I mean, I was armed, but nah, you know.
We'll show the pictures just so people have a frame of reference for what you're talking about. But just the pictures are not.
No,
you know,
they're not great. That was down in the bottom. I found that later on. That was near the end of this season. Deer season I'm talking about now. 2021. So, but that's the one That's the one I found over there. It's either that one or the other one. I can't remember. I found so many after a while. I don't even take pictures of them anymore because what good does it do? I run up on them and I just walk away, turn around and go the opposite direction they're going.
That and pictures, they just don't do justice whenever you take a picture versus standing there. You can't see the depth, you can't see the detail. The flash washes it out sometimes.
The picture before,
Which one? No?
That was the one I found over in the woods. That one. That was the first one I saw. And then the other one was one I found later on in the season on the south side. But so I leave and it's time for me to go back to work. I don't go back out there. And I go back out there when I get home, which is about 2 weeks later. This is when I found those tracks was in August. Yeah, see, that's what I found. Now, somebody may have put them there. It wasn't me. But that's how they were, like that. And then there's the tree bow, and then I took a picture where it's tied in over on the other side. But I backed up under that and didn't realize what it was until I looked up. That's the one Lance and I found. That's last year on the north side where I found the first track. So I come back out. I go over there and I'm going to put up a tree stand. It's a good place to hunt. And I said, I'm going to put one up. You were just imagining things. That wasn't what you thought it was. So I'm over there doing some trimming and stuff like that. And I go back to my four-wheeler, and I got a Gatorade over there, and I'm taking a drink, and I'm walking back down the hill, and I hear something grunt and kind of make a rush through the thicket on my left. So I pull out my 9, and I'm trying to get behind a tree. I'm thinking a hog's going to come out. And as I go to duck down, a stick, probably about a foot long, a little bit thinner around than this, probably about half of this, comes flying out of that thicket past my head. And then I hear something big behind me take off to the north. Now, that could have been a deer. I don't know. But I stood up and I said, I'm good. I'm getting out of here. Y'all have this place for the day. And I got on my four-wheeler, and unfortunately, it would not crank right away, which was not good. Because
No.
I was about to SHT myself, and I got out of there. I didn't go back out there for 3 weeks because I wouldn't go over there. I just wouldn't. I was scared to death. And I talked to my brother, and I told my brother, he said, ain't nothing out there. I said, all right. I'm just telling you, there's something weird over on that north side, and I don't know what it is. So I finally get the ladder stand together. Me and him go over there and put it up. But before deer season started, I contacted my cousin. I'm in Muskogee Creek, and he's Muskogee Creek. And he's a little further into it than I am. He knows the language pretty well. And I asked him, I was like, can you translate this in the Creek? Because the area I live in, when you talk about the Creek Indian War, Seminole Indian War, you can't go anywhere in this area where there's not history placards of a battle that took place here. Georgia was dominated by Creeks. I know most people think it was the Cherokee. It wasn't. It was Creeks. Dominated most of Georgia. But he done me he translated the little thing that says, I said, hey, big brother, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to get food for my family. You know, if you allow me to hunt, I'll leave part of my kill for you. And I recorded it, and I took a little speaker, Bluetooth speaker I had, and I went out there and I played it like 5 times as loud as I could play it. And then I said it in English myself. and said thank you, and I left that area. Well, I killed 3 deer out of that stand that year, so it was a good stand. I call it the meat stand because you could always get meat out of it. But the first deer I killed, I drug it back down there near where I found the footprints, and I gutted the deer. And I left the guts there, and I pulled the heart out and the liver, and I set it on top of the pile, and I drug the deer out. Well, after I dropped it off at the processors, I was going to hunt all day, so I was going to go hunt the southern side. And got out of the truck, and I was like, I was probably gone for an hour and a half tops. And I went to grab my pack. It's got my little snacks and, skinning knife, all that little stuff in it. And didn't have my pack. I said, damn it, I left it over at the stand. So I go back over to the north side to get my pack, and there it is hanging on the stand. And when I get it, I look over to where the gut pile was, because the gut pile was probably 15 yards behind where my stand was. The gut pile is completely gone. Nothing. Nothing's there but a big blood spot. That's it. Like I said, that's an hour and a half. I'm not saying hogs couldn't have got it. I'm not saying coyotes couldn't have got it. But there was nothing but a round blood spot where I left it. And there was no drag marks. There was no nothing. Nothing but a blood mark where it was sitting on the ground. So I left, went and hunted the south side. Didn't really have anything strange happen on the south side for a while. Killed another deer over there on the north side, the same stand. Did the same thing with the guts. I left for about an hour. I timed myself this time. I left for an hour, come back. The pile's gone again, nothing but a big red spot. Once again, I don't know what got it. Could be hogs, could be coyotes, but hogs and coyotes usually make a mess. There would be stuff scattered everywhere. There wasn't. It was pretty neat. It looks like someone picked it up and toted it off.
Yeah.
That happened, and I didn't hunt anymore over there that season, I don't believe. Yeah, I did. I hunted one more time at the end of the season, and I got a little 8-point buck. Probably should have let him walk, but I did hunt, and this was in 2021 when this happened. I hunted our box stand on the south side because it had been raining that morning. And I hunted till about 11, and I was going to come home and watch Georgia play. And my habit is when I come down out of the stand, I do a little walk around to the other stands if nobody's out there hunting, and I check the area, see what deer's been moving through. And that's when I found the second track, probably about 20 yards behind the shotgun house in the woods. I found it, and I was kind of dumbfounded, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. I know you're on the north side. Now you're over here too. So I took a picture and I went home. And rest of that season, nothing really crazy, nothing strange. Get to 2022 season. 2022 season, I was hunting a lot down in that bottom where I told you the bucket disappeared. I had already had the ladder stand up, so I was hunting that area really hard. I had some big deer on camera. Couldn't seem to quite catch them at the right time. And I was down there, and I was sitting up in my tree stand, and this is about 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, it was probably the day before we had had a good hard freeze where it had been in about 30, 29 degrees. And then the day I was hunting, it was probably about 35 degrees. So it was still relatively cold with a little bit of wind. And there's no acorns or nothing on this tree. There's no leaves left. And I keep hearing something hitting the metal of my stand. I keep hearing ding, ding. So I'm like, what the hell is that? And it kind of sits up straight. So I'm having to lean out and moved the little cover thing, looking down, seeing if there's a squirrel or something. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And it happens again. So I look up in the trees, and I'm thinking, there's no acorns. There's no nuts. What's hitting the ladder stand? Well, I look over to my left, which is a creek down in there, to my left down in that bottom, and I see trees moving, kind of shaking a little bit. And as I'm sitting there looking, I kind of break a smile because I'm thinking, you're imagining shit. That's a buck down there, And right as I'm smiling, I nut. And I had one of them nuts, and I do not know where it went. It's about yay big around, hits the side of the tree by my head and explodes. And I throw my hands up and I say out loud, all right, I'm leaving. And I climb down, go my ass 300 yards back up that hill, and I don't go back down there for another 2 weeks. Whatever they had going on, and I never did see it, but I've never seen a nut fall out of a tree where there's no nuts and hit the side of a tree and explode. So
That's sideways brain.
Yeah. Like I said, when I kept hearing the ding on the metal of the stand, right. I'm thinking nuts are falling, but I'm looking around me and I'm like, there's no nuts on any of these trees. And I would see it fall, For it to hit the ladder, the metal of the stand, you would have to see it fall. Nope, something was throwing at it.
That's one of them sounds too that's natural, and then after about 3 or 4, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So how many years in a row or total have you hunted that property?
It started in 2020, and it's now 2025. So this will be the 5th year.
Okay. So let me ask you this: can you tell that each year that there's more? You're experiencing more and different activity. Does it seem like okay? If you haven't heard me talk about what I went through, what I'm hearing from you is almost textbook to what I went through right here. Because the first year it was really slow and we were just hearing the whoops and the whistles and the tree knocks. Well, then the next year it was you had all that, but you'd have some more stuff. And then the next year it just kept, every year it was getting a little bit more, a little bit more. Yes. Yeah, it snowballed. So look, all I can tell you, I know you hadn't got to this part of your story, but if you've not been paced out yet and you hadn't been started having some violent encounters as far as them being belligerent, that may be in your future. I mean, because that's what you're telling me is like almost textbook what we lived through right here. And it was like every year they were trying just a little bit harder. It's kind of like, well, we didn't run them off last year. Damn it, here they are back. So we're going to have to up our game. And it just kept getting more and more and more until it finally all got to a head. And, I've been sitting here. I know everybody's like, man, he looks asleep. No, I'm sitting here concentrating and soaking up what you're talking about because my mind's running about 1,000 miles an hour of me going, well, if you hadn't had the belligerent encounters or the sure enough wild and crazy encounters, you may definitely be working up to that.
Well, it has definitely gotten weirder. I have found trees that are snapped off 8 feet up in the air, and we hadn't had a windstorm, and they're fresh little pines, Yeah. I found those several times, and I can't figure out. They're fresh green pine. Yeah. Pine trees.
Are the tops still there, or are they gone?
No, the tops are just laid over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who would I tell? I mean,
right.
Everybody's going to say, well, the wind done that.
Something to look out on those, and I know you probably know this, but I'm going to say it for the people out there that don't. If you see those that snapped, look at it and see if it's just folded and broke, or if it looks like it's twisted and broke.
I'd have to look. I just noticed they were broke, and they were about 8 feet up, and they were all pointed downhill. toward the water because there's a stream that runs down there.
I was just getting ready to say, were they all pointed in the same direction?
They were all pointed in the same direction, all pointed south toward that stream. So, and it's covered up. That stream's covered up. You wouldn't even know there's a stream there unless you've been down in it and you knew the stream was there. It's probably 4 feet wide and probably 3 feet deep.
Well, what I'll bet you, if you'll start looking, if those things are, if they're twisted, if it looks like something grabbed them and twisted them and folded them, that all of them's either going to be, it'll be a larger percentage. We'll put probably 90% or more. They'll either look like they're twisted clockwise or they'll be counterclockwise. And think of it like this: if you grab that thing, instead of your hand doesn't want to roll like my right hand don't want to roll, clockwise. It's easier to roll it counterclockwise. And if that's the same thing breaking them, odds are it's using it like if it's more prone to be right-handed. When it grabs them, it's going to grab them and twist them out and away from it, and they'll all be like counterclockwise breaks. And if that thing's predominantly left-handed, it's going to roll them the opposite way. But just kind of take a mental note if they look twisted, and that's going to kind of denote whether it was probably a right hand or a left hand that twisted it.
Will do.
One thing after talking to Kane and all that, the tree breaks are really interesting because I had no idea about any of that. But the ones that are the broken that we found over the last 5 years, when we went back and started thinking about it, and then started when we would find them, and now we're looking for it. Most of them are pointed towards a water source. Whether it be a spring coming outside the hill. And I don't know. I'm not saying that's 100% true, but the last one we found was broke, fresh break, shouldn't have been there, and we walked 30 yards and found an old well. I mean, I don't know if that's what that means or not, but we found some pointed towards springs. Like if I was going through there and didn't know the territory, and but around here, you could break a tree randomly and walk far enough you find water. So I mean, I don't know if that means anything.
I just don't necessarily think that they always mean the same thing in every situation.
Yeah,
because I've seen snaps. I've seen snaps before, but here's this is what I would say: if you're seeing snaps that are always 7, 8 foot 9 up, and they're laying down where the top has just been snapped and it's laying down, if you are finding more than 2 or 3 pointed in the same direction, and normally about 100 yards apiece from each other, that is typically booger activity. And in those areas, the reason I say that, nobody's an expert, but in those areas that I found that, I've also found other structure, glyphs, tracks to make you think, yes, this is definitely booger activity. Whether or not it means just water or something else, who knows? Here's something nobody in the Bigfoot field ever talks about. I went down this rabbit hole about 6 years ago. I was finding hardwood branches with all of the limbs stripped off of them. They were normally about 5, 6 foot long, and they were placed up in conifers, in pine trees and spruces and cedars. And they were about 7 foot up in the air, 8 foot up in the air, and they were always perfectly horizontal. And I always found them around hiking trails. And it was like every 200-300 yards, you'd find one. If it was a human trail or a human pathway, you'd find one. And I'm like, nobody ever looks for this kind of stuff. Nobody ever talks about it. Does that mean it's a Bigfoot? I don't know, but I can tell you I found them with enough frequency that it made me start paying attention to it. And everybody has theories on the stick structures. I will say boogers do stick structures. Some of them are directional. Some of them are a map. And like Kane is fond of saying, they most likely communicate way more information than just a direction. They're giving a different kind of message. But the stick structures are a real thing.
Yeah.
And it's wild when you just start noticing this stuff, and like for last 40 years, what did we see and not see?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now we're paying attention. So it's pretty wild.
And back to the point that Greg was talking about, Earl, the more that you acknowledge, I truly think that this is correct. The more that you acknowledge them, the more they understand that you're aware of them. They become more, if you're in an area where they are there and you're the one coming into their area, do not be surprised. Cannot tell you how many times I've heard this. I've never had this happen personally. So many times I've heard of people going in there and then they kind of start to figure out the puzzle, and then they acknowledge them by saying something to them or leaving them something. Next thing you know, they're at your house. Happens a lot. I don't know how it happens, but it happens a lot.
She said it is weird. I don't know if this has anything to do with it. When my wife and I purchased this house, we moved in, and I had to leave to go back out to work. And she said something slapped. We live in a brick house, slapped the side of the brick house, and she felt it. And she told me about it when I got home. She said, "I figured it was a deer." I was like, "You felt it when it hit the side of the brick house? A deer?" She was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "No, it wasn't a deer." I don't know what it was. I went and got a 2x8 I had and screwed 2 little pieces of 2x4 on it so I could hold it. And I reared back. I smacked the side of the house, and she was inside. And she comes to the window. She goes, "Nope, wasn't the same. This was bigger." I don't know. I don't know if that means anything or not. But it has ramped up some. And the voices, I heard the voices out of that same tree stand where they were throwing the nuts at me. I heard voices to my right in the pine thicket, and it sounded like 2 men with deep voices. I don't know what that was. There was no one outside on the land that day but me. And the nearest house is that shotgun house, and that shotgun house is empty. So
Well, and you
I have no idea what that was.
Will you go back to let's say me and Spencer don't know where that's at, but if we'd have come on that land by mistake and we're talking to each other like, how do we get out of here? You're gonna know it's 2 guys talking, right? So you're saying I don't know what it was, but it sounded like that always gets me, because we all still want to explain things away, even though it's right there. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not what that was. That had to be 2 fellas I don't know, really deep voice. You know, and in your stomach and in your in your heart, you kind of know what it was, but you still have trouble saying it. I mean, I still have trouble saying this stuff. Well, it sounded like this. It could have been that, and deep down, you kind of know.
Well,
After so many experiences that you've had, all the evidence is adding up, and I don't know if we ever get out of that, because we're built that way. But
yeah, well, see, I went as far as I texted my older brother, I texted the owner of the shotgun house, and I texted the other guy who's part of the lease. I said, "Hey, are y'all out here? And I didn't hear y'all come in." They was like, "No, I'm at work. I'm at work. I'm at work." So I was the only one out there.
Yeah.
Who it was, where it was, I don't know. All I could hear was, and it was out in the pines to my right. And I'm sitting up in that tree stand about 16 feet up going, "You've got to be me. Really?"
Yeah.
Have you lost any deer on that property? Have you downed a deer and then?
That has not happened. That is one thing that has not happened. The guts being gone, where it looked like someone picked them up, and it might, but it. I will tell you this: took my cousin-in-law out there hunting, and I put him in that stand in the bottom, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, if you hear weird noises, pay no attention to them. Just deer hunt." You know, I didn't tell him everything because he wouldn't have believed me anyway.
Yeah.
And he shot a doe, and we found a little bit of blood, and never did find her. And then one of the other guys on the lease ended up finding her about 50 yards down from where he shot her, but her head was missing. I don't know what the hell that means. The legs were gone and the head was missing. I don't know. I didn't see it personally. He called me and told me about it and asked me. And I said, well, he shot a doe, but we could never find her. He said, well, I found her, but her damn legs were missing, her back legs were missing, and her head was missing.
Wow. And it's
Right.
like,
Did he happen to say how the head was taken off? Was it twisted off?
He just said it looked like it had been torn off.
hmm.
Now, I never put my eyes on it. He did, because when he messaged me about it, I was offshore at the time. So, other than that, I don't know. That was one of the things, and I never said to him anything about what's been going on with me out there. Like I said, I don't talk to them about it because they think I'm crazy anyway. So what's the point? Now, I have down in that bottom, which is weird because the north side used to make me nervous, going on that north side where I found those tracks. And it's gotten now when I go down to that bottom, there are times when I'll get 150 yards down that hill through them trees, and I get the heebie-jeebies, willy-jillies, whatever you want to call it, and I'll turn my ass around, and I'll go to another stand back up on top of the hill. And I can't tell you why.
We call it spooky feels.
I'll turn right around. I'll be like, I'm not supposed to be down here. And I'll go somewhere else.
Always listen to that.
Yep.
That's happened quite a bit the past 2 years down there. Now, 2023, 2020, yeah, it was in 2023 or 2022, near the end of the season, we had a hard freeze. Like, I mean, literally, I've got, Greg, you know, you got a shooting rail up on the stand. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And you got the little camo cloth hanging down that kind of covers up your legs and all, so you can set back. It gives you a little bit of cover.
Yeah.
Disguises your movement. Well, it was so cold, I went out that morning, and I was the only one out there. It was so cold, when I went to get up in that tree stand to lift it up, it was frozen solid. So it come up almost like a solid piece, and I had to crawl under it and let it back down. Well, I'm sitting there that morning, and like I told you, I get down there before before daylight, way before daylight, usually 2 hours before daylight. I just enjoy sitting there and enjoying the peace and quiet. And I'm sitting there, and I happen to look down. I'm looking around, and I ain't got my headlamp on. I can't really see a whole bunch because it was not much of a moon. And I see two little lights down to my right in front of my stand, kind of, I'd say about 2 o'clock to my right, down in front of me. And I see them coming through the thicket. And they get right there, and they're just kind of dancing around each other. And then one goes out across the trail to the other thicket on the other side, and then turn around, comes back to this one. And they do this, and then they go back up in the woods. They never flashed. I don't know what they are. I tried to take a picture of them. They would not show up on my camera. I have no idea what that was. Couldn't tell you what that was. But they were not. I've never seen lightning bugs in freezing weather. I mean, there was literally ice everywhere. I don't know what that was. It kind of freaked me out worse than the footprints, to be honest with you. Because what really got me freaked out, within 5 minutes, I heard something moving through that thicket down in front of me, and something black, about the size of a German Shepherd. The way it moved, it could have been a hog that had been shot, but it moved kind of like it was loping, and it went across that trail and went down in the woods heading down toward that creek. I didn't sit there too much longer. I waited till it got daylight when I could see, and I got down and I left. That was enough for me for one day. I didn't need anything else. I was good. I was like, yep, it's a bad day to hunt. That's what I told her. You didn't see it? How long did you sit? I was like, it was just a bad day. It was too cold. I couldn't take it. And I left. I think the little lights, that's what I told you that time. I'd seen fairy lights. I don't know what they were, but they were not lightning bugs. I literally had ice on my mustache where I was breathing out. That's how cold it was. I couldn't tell you what that was. I've never seen them again. That's the only time I've seen them. So I can't explain that.
You did not hear any knocks or whoops when you saw those lights?
Nothing.
Or whistles?
Dead silent.
How far away from you did they get?
Let's see. If I was on the ground, they would have been 20 feet from me. That's how close they were. I literally was sitting there looking down at them. You know,
Did you say how big they were?
They looked to be the size of a quarter. I mean, from where I was sitting, you got to remember, I was sitting up in the tree stand about 16 feet up, and they were this way down. They looked to be about the size of a quarter. They never blinked, and they come out of the bushes. I mean, I saw the two lights, and I'm looking like, what the hell is that? And they come out, and they just danced there in the edge of the trees, and then one went across to the other side, and then come back across to this one, and then they turned and went back up in the trees. And then about 10.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Did you notice that were they sphere shaped? Like, did light emanate?
Yeah, it was
from
round.
all different directions, like up on a tree here or whatever. It was just.
It looked like a solid white light.
Electrical.
But it was not illuminating stuff out around it. It was just a white light in that spot.
Yep, two of them. Two.
Yeah.
Because they were dancing around like this, and then the one went out, come back, they danced around a little longer, then they turned and went back up into the trees.
Is there any water close by?
Yeah, that stream is down there to the left.
Okay.
A lot of this stuff takes place in one or two spots for some reason. I don't know why, but it is what it is. I'm not meant to know, and so and then 10 minutes later is when I saw that black thing lope across.
Thank you.
Lope across the.
Hey, Larry.
And Catherine, Kat, thank you for posting the links to all the other shows since Misty's not here. I appreciate the help. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Larry.
Thank you very much, Larry. All right. So that's what, 23? What about 24?
24 was a pretty interesting year. Had some bags of corn go missing. I had some stored. I had an old aqua feeder down there that I would use sometimes during the season, but mostly to keep the does coming in down there. And I'd put a bag of corn in it, and I come back, and the lid was off of it, and the whole bag, 50-pound bag of corn was gone. I asked my brother and the rest of them, they don't go down there. A lot of the guys that are on the lease are older than me. I'm 52, but they're older than me, and they're not walking that 300 yards down through that brush and trees to get down there to that bottom. So I pretty much hunt that area myself, but they haven't messed with it. It was gone. I chalked that up to whatever. I haven't told you about the peanut butter jars. I forgot about that. This has happened multiple years. This happened in 21, 22, and 23. I would take jars of peanut butter, and I'd dig a little hole and put them in the ground and let the deer come in.
Yeah.
And jars of peanut butter disappear, and I figure a hog or deer picked them up, toted them off. The crazy part of it is, within 3 or 4 days, the jar would show back up down there on the ground, not in the hole, but on the ground, completely clean. That's happened multiple times. Multiple times. The jar would disappear. 3 days later, empty jar shows back up. I can't explain that. Maybe it's some animal. I don't know. But the jar always shows back up.
Well, I can tell you this, man. For several years, well, really my whole life, other places we hunted, we would put out salt and mineral blocks, and we put out the 50-pound like cattle blocks. Where I hunt now, several years ago, I quit putting the block form out. We pour it out loose. We dig a hole, pour it in the hole, and then put water on it to make it melt in the ground. Because
Yep.
they got tired of putting a 50-pound block out and going back 3 or 4 days later, and the 50-pound block would be gone. It would just be gone. So, yeah, we were getting the 50-pound blocks toted off. So, here where I'm at, there's not no known animals that can tote off a 50-pound salt block.
Exactly. I'm right there with you on that one.
Yeah.
But that's happened many times. Even one of my friends went down there one year, and I looked, and I was like, "Oh, they brought the peanut butter jar back." He goes, "What do you mean they brought the peanut butter jar back?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I'll open up a jar of peanut butter, put it out here for the deer." And I said, "I'll come back the next day. The jar's gone. I come back 3 days later. The jar's back, clean as a whistle." And he kind of looked at me funny. He goes, "You're crazy." I was like, "I'm just telling you what happens. I don't know what gets it, what brings it back. I don't know. But it disappears, and then it comes back. Clean. Like you had taken a rag and completely clean. Not even a cent of peanut butter in that jar."
Yeah. Have you, by any chance, invested in a FLIR yet, or a thermal camera, thermal imager?
I have not. My buddy Lance, that I'm going to be hooking y'all up with, that's been down there to my land, he has one, and he's wanting to go camping down there, but we ain't been able to hook it up yet because of my schedule and his schedule. But he has one, so I'm hoping to get him down there with that. So, and they may be asking me for a refill. I don't know. I found it amazing that the jar would disappear and they come back. And, I couldn't explain that. I still can't explain that.
Somebody else asked, were the lids on the peanut butter jar put back on? He was taking the lids off, y'all. And
I had taken the lids off for the deer.
Yeah.
So that, I thought about that, and I haven't done it yet, but I thought about doing that.
If you're going to put the lids on, especially for a booger, nail that thing to a tree. Put a gutter spike through it and nail it to a tree.
Now, one of the guys who's been out there for 13 years, he used to do that. He would screw the lid to the peanut butter, and he'd cut a hole in the bottom onto a tree. And he said he's come back and the peanut butter jar be gone and the lid's still on the tree. And he set it up about 4 feet off the ground. But, he said, I don't know. I guess they broke them off and took them. He don't know. I didn't tell him anything because, once again, I'm already crazy. So,
yeah.
Has anybody taken your peanut butter and have a stump, that you got in mind, and take a rake in the woods and rake out all the leaves in a huge circle? Like if something steps in to get it, you could pick up a track or whatever.
I've tried that, but I've never got anything, especially on the north side. I've tried different things. I've left like little marbles and all, and I've raked away the leaf litter around that area. I've never got anything but deer tracks in there and hog tracks. So I don't know about that one. I had last year, I had 3 different occasions trees were pushed over. And then I sent you the audio I sent you, Spencer, of the hogs. I don't know what that was. It got that hog, but it roared and it scared the shit out of me. And usually hogs will settle down about daylight. They'll go to the bed area. These hogs stayed crunk up and raising hell till about 1:30 that afternoon. And I've never heard them do that out there. I don't know what got them riled up, but they were pissed off and they were on it.
This is everybody does things different, but like what Chris is talking about, Chris would actually put them in the, well, you can talk to him about them. I don't want to put words in his mouth. Chris, you can comment if I'm wrong, but they would actually bury them in containers. Not just peanut butter, but like other stuff, like granola bars or candy bars, I think he told me. And something would come get it, open it, get the stuff out of it, put the lid back on it, put it back in the ground, and cover it back up.
Wow.
There are several people that have had the whole peanut butter jars with the lid on with a gutter spike through the middle of it, nailed to a tree. They come back, the whole jar is taken off of the gutter spike. It's completely cleaned out. The lid is back on it. And it's laying on the ground right there. They do different things in different areas.
Yeah. Well, like I said, when I go out there deer hunting, I'm not looking for them. I leave them alone. I go out there every year and I say a little blessing, and I tell them out loud, I'll speak it out loud, that I'm here to hunt, feed my family. You do your thing, I'm going to do mine. Yeah. And then, of course, when I go down to my little favorite hunting spot, halfway down, I get the bolt of lightning telling you to turn your ass around and go back up. So, and I've walked into a wall of smell down there this past year. I'll tell you, that was the first thing. I was heading down there, and I was about halfway down the hill, and I hit a wall of smell that smelled like trash, hog, wet dog, just all three combination, and it was god awful. The first thing I thought, there was a hog, and I spun around, and there was nothing behind me, and there was nothing in front of me, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going down here this morning. And I turned around and walked back uphill, and I got about 10 paces from it, and I didn't smell it anymore. So, I can't explain that one. Now, the first tree I heard pushed over this past season, I went down to this bottom, and I walked over to the little feeder thing, and I usually grab a cup of corn or two, and I'll toss out for the does coming through, because it's right there in the rut, close to the rut, not quite in it yet. And we've been having a lot of does come through, and I've been seeing for tracks of bucks and pictures of bucks coming through after the doe had come through. So I walk down there to my feeder, and I see these two little brown and tan things laying on the ground. I thought it was trash, and I was like, who the hell's been down here throwing trash out? And it's two little bitty hogs. And I shine the light behind the feeder, and there's a bunch of them, and the first thing I'm thinking is, where is Sal? Where's the mama? Where's the mama? It's pitch black. Where's the mama? My ass booked it back real quick to my stand and boogied up the stand quicker than ever. I never saw the mama. I didn't care. When daylight come, they were gone. Well, 2 days later, I head back down there. For 2 days, I hunted somewhere else, and then I'll go back down there. I try to rotate my stands where I hunt at. Like I'll hunt one stand in the morning, one stand in the evening, or I'll hunt this stand in the morning and another stand. We have multiples.
Right.
And but the bottom is my favorite, to be honest. I like it down there. It's just so pretty. And I went down there, and I was walking to the same old feeder, and I hear pop, 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 and you heard something go, a tree hit the ground. My ass immediately went back up that hill and went to another stand. I was done. I don't know what did it, but whatever it did it took a pine tree about that big around and just snapped it. So I got out of there. There's nothing but pines and scrub oaks, and you could tell that was a green pine by the snapping, the way it sounded. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So I go back up. I got to stand on top of the hill, and I'm hunting it, and I've had some success. And then I'm sitting there one day, and this was the morning. Remember I said to you about the little audio? I caught the tail end of the audio where it got the hog. Well, that morning before that thing started with that hog, I was hearing hoot owls, but it didn't sound like hoot owls. It was a hoo, 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 like somebody was out there trying to make the sound. Yeah, and it was down there in the pine thicket to my left, up in this tree stand up top of the hill. And then I heard another one over here in the pine thicket on the right down from me. And I'm like, that don't sound like owls. And then you hear hoo, 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 hoo. Then you hear the same thing from over here. And then you hear another one further down the hill. So I'm listening to it going, well, that's kind of weird. You know, I've never heard that many out here. And that it didn't have that shrill at the end. That's
right.
what made it strange. And then that's when I heard the hog. Whatever got a hold of that hog, got a hold of it. Because it went to scream of bloody murder, and you could hear the other hogs, and then you heard something roar, and then you heard the hogs distance themselves from whatever that was, and you heard that pig squeal for another second, and then it went quiet. I don't know what got the hog, but that was the day when the hogs, whatever got them riled up, they stayed riled up to about 1:30 that afternoon. They never shut up. Never shut up. Usually they bed down and you don't hear them. They were wide open all day. So, but that happened. And then that afternoon, I come back to hunt that afternoon. I left, went to town, and got me something to drink. Was going to hunt out that same stand that evening. And that's when, to my right, I heard a tree get pushed over. Now, 20 yards to my right starts somebody else's lease property. I could not see any further than my little 20 yards from where I was at because it gets real thick. But I heard a tree get pushed over. It was no wind. It had not been raining. And I did not hear any equipment. So I don't know what that was. And then it happened again 3 days later while I was sitting in the same stand. And I quit hunting out of that stand for the rest of the year. And I went to another part of the property to hunt. So, you know, like I said, I've never seen one. I can't explain the things that happen. I can't explain the lights. I can't explain the footprints. I can't explain the peanut butter jars, the bait bucket. I can't explain these things. I do not know what it is. I can't explain the gut piles being gone. I'm at a loss. Lance has been coming out there and taking a look at things, and Lance will tell you when you speak with Lance will tell you you get a weird feeling when you're out on that property for some reason. It's strange. You never feel like you're alone. You always feel like you're being watched.
Man, what you're talking about, what you just said is about where I was in 2008 up till January the 29th of 2009 when I finally did lay eyes on one when that one come across the road. I mean, I was going through the exact same thoughts that you're having. You know, I'm asking all these questions and I'm experiencing all this stuff. And in my mind, everything that I'm trying to figure out is telling me that it's a booger. It's a Bigfoot. It's got to be. That's the only thing that makes any sense. And I'm still refusing to believe it. And, you know, when I tell people I'm having all these encounters, I'm talking about dozens and dozens of encounters every year. And this has been going on for, at this time, right at 9 years. And man, I could not totally. It didn't matter what I'd experienced, how many things I've had thrown at me, how many whoops, screams, yells, roars, you know, the huffs, the growls, the grunt, the whistles, the tree knocks. I still could not wrap my hands around that that's what it is. I mean, I was lying to myself, but I still couldn't accept it. Not till I kept saying, it's got to be something else. It's got to be something that, when I saw that thing step out of that wood line, I realized what it was. And then when it twisted and looked at me, face straight on, and then started to go in the woods and then pivoted back and jumped up, ran across the road. That's when everything had like swelled up and it's like the balloon exploded. And that's the reason I was both hands on the wheel, leaned up to the steering wheel, and I was screaming, there you are, you son of a bitch. I see you. And I was just screaming at the windshield because all these years, all this frustration and all this stuff I had been through, it finally came to a head and exploded. And then all the doubt was gone. I'm done with doubt at all. And, I'm sitting here just soaking all this up that you're talking, and I'm relating back to exactly what I went through for all those years, for at least 8 years. And I know where you're at. And you'll make yourself think that you're crazy. I mean, you'll start doubting yourself. But for me, I had my dad, and I had Alan, and a couple of more people that had went with me that had got to experience it also. So that helped me a lot. They were seeing what I saw, and and then I talked to some people in the community. It's like, let me tell you what I saw. So even all that weighing on me, I still couldn't accept it. Not 100% till then.
That's kind of where I'm at. Every year it stacks up and it stacks up and it stacks up,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no answers. I cannot. What's the saying? Once you eliminate the probable, the impossible becomes the answer.
Yeah.
And I've racked through my brain. I'm a guy. I read a lot of books. I listen to books a lot. I'm a historian. I study a lot of history, stuff like that. And I look at facts. This is what I see. This is what I know. And I cannot wrap my head around the things that's happened. I've heard wood knocks out there too. Actually, it was last year. It was near the last day of season, and my brother was hunting in the bottom. It was late afternoon, and he left early, and I was hunting up at the top of the hill, and he had messaged me, and he said, "Hey, I'm leaving," and I could have swore I heard his truck start up and leave, and I heard one clack, and that was it. It was silent. Everything was silent after that. And I messaged him. I said, "Hey, you still down there in the bottom? Did you bang your rifle on the ladder stairs?" He said, "I've been gone 10 minutes. Don't know what that was." I have no idea. But it's weird things, and they don't always happen. It gets hard to keep track of sometimes because once you start seeing the tracks, once you start having all the weird things, it all jumbles up into one, and it's kind of hard to keep track of. The peanut butter jars, I almost forgot to tell you about that, but I can't explain that. I can't explain them two little lights.
You lose track of the stuff. What kills me is the stuff is always. It's always not. I hate saying when you least expect it, but it is when you least expect it. If you go out somewhere and find that you're getting like knocks and whistles, damn it, you'll go back out there and set a recorder out there for 2 weeks trying to record one, not hear anything. And as soon as you don't set a recorder out there, you'll go back out and get the knocks and the whistles. It's like they know exactly what you're doing and what you're thinking. So let's hear about the crows.
The crows. I can't explain the crow thing. I know in some cultures, two crows, when you see two crows at a hunt, when you're on a hunt, it means good luck for the hunt. I've had two crows follow me around on this land for the past 5 years. I don't know if it's the same two crows, but if I stop somewhere for more than 2 minutes, two crows will land around me in the trees. They do it on the north side. They do it on the south side. I've never fed them. I don't know if someone else has fed them before, but they don't follow anyone else around. They don't follow my brother. They don't follow the other guy or the other guy. It's just me. I told one of my buddies, we went out there during the summer. It's been a year ago. We were going to do some skeet shooting. And we get set up, and I said, hey, don't be surprised if two crows don't fly in here and settle in these trees. He goes, what the hell are you talking about? I said, I got two crows out here that follow me around. And he goes, man, whatever. What? 3 minutes later, two crows come in, landed right there in the trees. He looked at me. He goes, you were serious? I said, I told you. I don't know why. I've never, like I said, I've never fed them. They even know when I had the blind set up, because I'll move my blind around sometimes, and I'll get there at like 3 in the morning, and I'll go set up my blind and get everything comfortable. And then when daylight comes up, I'll hear crows outside of my blind, and I'll unzip and look on the left or the right, and there's two crows sitting out there calling at me. Now, how in the hell did they know I was in the blind? I wasn't smoking, wasn't making no noise. I don't know. Maybe they smelled me. I don't know. But that's where the two crows come from. I've had a crow land on my lighter stand while I'm sitting in the lighter stand.
They're so smart. It's scary.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever been hit by lightning?
No.
Have you ever?
I've come close, but no.
Have you ever died and been resuscitated or near-death experience? You know.
Not to my knowledge. No.
Is there a history in your family of anything paranormal, supernatural? People being overly empathetic or psychic even? Well,
I can't say my aunts. All my aunts, when their husbands died, every one of my aunts said their husbands visited them the night they died in their room. That's what my aunts on my dad's side. Now, you got to remember my dad's side is Muskogee Creek. My wife, it freaks my wife out because I'll literally be offshore and something will happen and I will message her and say, hey, you all right? Are you okay? Is something wrong? And she was like, you are so scary. It scares the shit out of her because something will happen or, one of her clients, she's a hairstylist, one of her clients would have had a heart attack or go in the hospital that she's had for 20 years. So, stuff like that, it freaks her out. She'll tell you that. If I could get her to come in here, she'll tell you that. It scares the shit out of her.
I mean, a high degree of empathy, but if you can pick up on that kind of stuff, I mean, crows following you around, that could be hey, maybe you got some kind of different juju to you that the crows and the boogers pick up on.
I don't know. I mean, the crow thing's been going on so long now, I just don't even worry about it. I think it is a good sign. Usually when they show up, I get a deer. So, I don't know. That's why I told you. Go ahead.
You ever have any deja vu experiences? Right.
Oh, yeah. I don't have them as much anymore. I used to have them all the time as a kid. And it would be weird things. Like you would see somebody else doing something and then it's like you've done it before. You've been there watching that before. Stuff like that. Yeah, I've had that.
So.
It's funny, these two teenage girls, they didn't run away, but they were at a party. I wasn't at the party that night. And their dad showed up and they took off running. And it was in a neighborhood I used to live in. And they couldn't find the two girls. And I knew the dad. And I said, hey, come pick me up. And we're going down this dirt road. And I said, stop right here. He said, what are you talking about? I said, stop right here. He goes, they're not going to be in the woods. I said, stop right here. Circle back around. I walk in the woods and walk directly to them sitting on a stump. Didn't know they were there. Brought them out. He goes, huh? And did you do that? I said, I don't know. Something told me to tell you to stop the car right here. And I walked straight line into them. There they were. They got in a whole lot of shit. But
you happen to know your blood type?
B. I don't want to say B positive.
Okay. And I don't know. I'm asking all these people this because I don't know what it means yet, but I like to know because I'm finding out some people are connected in different ways and have things happen to them. So it's just
Well,
it's wild that we're talking about stuff like that. But
the Wind Clan is from the Creeks, is where I'm from. If I'm not mistaken, the Warriors and the Shamans come from the Wind Clan. Don't quote me on that. Um, I haven't looked that up. I think my cousin told me about that. So that's a possibility. I don't know. I've always been empathetic.
yeah,
Right there's the man in chat. There's a man in chat could tell you
Ken,
when playing Ken.
Ken, am I saying this right? He's got that medicine. Did I say that right? Yeah, I've known
We
people
need
all my life.
to get
Not
Ken
a,
on here.
yeah, not a ton of people, but the people that I've known in my life that had those special, I don't say abilities, but like just like you said, um, it's like we all figure it out. What the hell? Y'all just heard a 9mm go off about 8 times. I gotta go. Bye.
Okay.
All right.
I'm in the middle of
Let us know
town.
what
It ain't
happens.
good. All right,
Go.
bye.
Bye.
Right.
That's not good.
No.
Well, it
Not
depends
good
on
at
if
all.
it's a good person using it or a bad person using it.
Yeah.
It's only a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool.
That's right. Exactly.
You know. But yeah, I'll keep y'all posted. Go ahead.
I have really enjoyed you being on here today because I've sat here and listened to somebody that's gone through something very similar to what I've dealt with for a long time.
Well, when I was talking to him in my head, I was like, a lot of this sounds just like Al's. And whenever you said that you don't know if he's had this happen or not, but it's probably in his near future, I was like, yep, probably.
Yeah.
You keep going to that spot. I truly think that once they get to know you and especially whenever you're acknowledging them and letting them know that you know that they're there, that leads to escalations of them being comfortable, in my opinion, and getting closer and getting crazier and doing more shit. Although it could go crazy to where they start bluff charging and shaking trees and screaming at you and trying to get you gone.
Well, I can tell you that roar, the first roar I ever heard, whatever that was. I don't ever want to hear that again. And that was when I
That
was after that surgery. I don't want to hear that no more. Never again. That was enough.
that's reminding me of my motorcycle story, Spencer.
I know it. That's kind of what I was crossed between. Is he talking about the same thing as the motorcycle story, or is it a dog man? Although I've heard some of the howls that were recorded at LBL that I truly do think were a dog man. They don't look like a booger on the spectrograph, and they weren't really like what you would hear in like you said like an American Werewolf in London, but longer and drawn out.
Yeah.
They didn't really sound like that, but close enough. I mean, I guess if I think about it a certain way.
Well, that's closest I've heard to it. Now, I wouldn't say that's exact, like I
Right.
said, but the depth and the vibration of it, you know. And there was a show I was offshore and I was listening to a podcast and I cannot remember the name of it, but it had to do with Bigfoot. I was brushing my teeth and they had a howl that made me stop what I was doing and go back and rewind the podcast so I could hear it again that reminded me of that. But I cannot remember the name of it to save my life. And it wasn't an Ohio howl. I think it was something recorded out in Washington or somewhere. I don't know. I've never heard it again. But and then that roar with that hog, I'm not sure what that was. I could feel the vibration off of it, but it had the hog stirred up. They were whatever got a hold of that hog was big. So,
Well,
but yeah,
Well, Earl, thank you for doing all of this with us.
Oh, no problem. Well, I hope I kept people entertained.
Hang on backstage whenever we get off here just for a minute so I can talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Just didn't
Bye,
know.
everyone.
I know it.
Greg.
Well, we know, Ken. Get on here. What are you doing? I gave you an invite. Come on.
Yeah, we have got to get Ken on. We got to. We got to get Pyro on. We got to get Ken on. We got a bunch of people we got to get on. But hey, let me touch on something. I'm gonna say it again, broke record style. Anybody that's trying to join up on the Facebook page, the Woodwalker Facebook, once again, if you're trying to get on there and join, answer the questions, please. Please answer the questions. That way we know that you're a real person. Just answer them. We don't want your shoe size. We don't want your social security number. Yeah, no, it's nothing like that. But just answer the three little questions, and then we know that you are a real human being. Uh, we've had a couple that's tried to get on while we've been on this show today. And, please answer the questions, please.
You're welcome.
Spencer, where are we at now on subscribers?
Before the show started today, we were nine away from 3,000. So I'd very much like to go over 3,000. There's something about YouTube I read. I don't know this for a fact, but YouTube does something with the algorithm once you hit 3,000 that helps distribute the show a little bit more. And understand this, my reason for wanting the show distributed more is number one, because I know we got people telling the real information about what these things are. And number two is because it's actually difficult to line up a bunch of guests. And I watch all these other shows and I'm like, where did you find these people? And of course they won't share the information about the guests or anything. So I can't talk to them, but it would be nice if we were a little bit more distributed so that we had access to some more people wanting to come on here. And if the people come on here next week, that I really hope will, I got to check with them. And if they bring a certain clip of a video, it'll be a record-setting show. So anyway,
yeah,
we will see you guys next week. Thank you very much, everybody in the chat. Thanks, everybody that watched. Thanks for that $10 donation.
Yeah.
And Earl, hang on. See you in a minute. All right, y'all.
Big love,
Bye, everybody.
On the computer, you have to hit okay. Anyway.
Just turn me on, turn me up, and turn me loose.